Hey guys, welcome back to Focused on Fins Live. I am your host, Eric Smith, and as always, I am joined by my co host, Anthony Testino. Weather here is great right now. Hope it is in New Jersey also. 4 o'clock today started the new league year for the NFL. Good time to let things go. But as you can see with Anthony's attire today, he's not quite ready to let go of everything. How you doing today, Anthony?
Good, buddy. Enjoying the weather as well. It's beautiful, even though I know it's going to go away very quickly and be back into the 30s in like 2 days. So enjoy it for time we have it.
Yeah, got to take it while we can. So obviously we are a football show here, but there was some big news yesterday that is relevant to our viewers, right? A lot of them are going to be Miami based, and it's kind of, I guess, near and dear to my heart, just because uh, NBA single game scoring record is held by Wilt Chamberlain with 100, and he did that about 30 minutes north of me in Hershey, PA. So that's always been kind of a,
Pretty
a
cool.
big thing around here. Everybody knows about it. But last night, Bam Adebayo of the Heat took over number 2 from Kobe Bryant, scoring 83 points, which topped Kobe Bryant's 81 points. And I know that you're a big Kobe guy, so wanted to give you a chance to share your thoughts on Bam moving to that number 2 spot.
Yeah. So, obviously I already kind of saw all the tweets about and like, Bam's getting attacked and all this stuff. And like, I was one of the first ones that tweeted, like, and I just simply said, like, please, like, enjoy it, but it's not the same. And course, people didn't like that, even though I literally was not saying
Predictable.
anything like bad. Like the dude scored 83 points. It's awesome. Like just enjoy it. But again, even in just a simple box score look, like I have it here, and it's Kobe was more efficient. He made more baskets. He made the same amount of threes and 9 less attempts. Bam took 43 free throws he knocked down. Kobe had 18. Like, and then not to mention, you did it against the Wizards, which, okay, Toronto wasn't much better, but the Lakers were down 18 in the third. So it was like part of a comeback where it was just like, I'm taking over because I feel the need to. They were down like 10, 12, 14 the entire game. And then he willed them to victory in the fourth and finished with the 81. So for me, yeah, like it's different. Like, I mean, the Heat were just coasting and then they were just finding Bam. And I love Bam. Like, I've liked Bam for years where I'm like, why does this guy get such a bad rep? Because he's awesome as a 5 that can kind of do it. He's like a poor man's LeBron in a way because he's big and can do everything. So again, enjoy it. It's awesome. Hats off to Bam. Like, I'm not taking anything away. If you got 83 points by hitting 83 free throws, it's impressive. But if you're going to compare them and you want to go to war on it, I'm ready. Like it's Kobe all day, man.
You can take that on Twitter. I am not a big basketball guy. I'm not going to war over Bam versus Kobe.
Oh, man, down.
I think I think that for me, I did tune in for the last couple minutes there. I've seen the stuff all day today about
Sorry, Griffey.
Yeah, of course it was.
Well,
Saw the stuff today about the count of the free throws and how those fouls were legitimate. I also saw it pointed out that 10 years from now, nobody's going to care how he got to
No.
83. He's just going to be number 2. And when we look back a couple of years ago, when the Dolphins had the chance to have the single game scoring record and decided not to, looking back on that, I wish they would have. So I definitely don't blame the Heat or Bam for, as he got close to that number, doing what was needed to get that the second place in that record book, because that's going to be
absolutely
remembered forever.
Yep, absolutely. And again, last time, hats off to him. It's super cool, man. You don't see that obviously very often.
No, definitely not. So back to the football stuff. Have to check in on what we talked about last week on the check the tape portion of this. So 3 players that had come up last week in the comments that we either hadn't watched film on or really hadn't done enough work for, at least I hadn't. Chase Bisontis, Emmanuel Pregnon, both guards, and then Jacoby Lane, wide receiver out of USC. So I did go back, watched all of them. So Chase Bisontis, I'm a fan of him. I've seen some buzz of, maybe a round one type player for him, and I'm not there on him. I think that he is, he's got that strong frame, like he's well built, good anchor. Think that he does well creating in the run game, especially in the zone blocking scheme. So I could see the appeal for a Miami or any of these Shanahan style schemes. But there's enough for me. In the big note that I have with Chase Bisontis is I feel like he struggles to recover. Like if everything is good, then he's getting movement. He is getting to his spots, right? But as soon as he gets a little bit off balance, either in the run game or in the pass game, I feel like there's a struggle to recover there. And that is something that can improve over time. I think Chase Bisontis is going to be a very good NFL player, and I do like him a lot. I just don't see him as a first round guard for me. I think that, a guy that's going to be a solid but not spectacular player in the NFL for a lot of years. Anything you have on Bisontis?
No, I was definitely curious to hear your opinion, and I plan on getting into the offensive line specifically. I want to do all those guys at the same time, so that way there's some comparison there. I think that's easier to do. I have bounced around a little bit, but I try not to as much as I can. I looked at just looking at him, his combine, right, is he's 6'5", 315. I don't know off the top of my head, but do you prefer, are you okay with those numbers? Or if it's you, do you prefer to have the 325, 330 guy and maybe sacrifice a little bit of the athleticism there, even with, the zone scheme? Like I just picture, right, Zach Martin. I picture, the best of the best, right? The Quentin Nelsons. And yeah, for whatever reason, I have them pictured in my head as they're bigger, they're stronger, but then they also do have the movement skills. Maybe they're not quite as fast or as athletic as Bisontis, but I don't know. He just looked like almost small in a weird way where, it's almost like I'm surprised he was 6'5", 315, where I was like, if you asked me what he was, I would have said he's like 6'4", 305. I don't know. Just again, this is me. I don't know if you have thoughts into that or want to go deep dive or.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be a deep dive on that for me, but I think that you have a point, right? Because I think that when you look at a guy like Quentin Nelson, like Zach Martin, you have that. I think they are as athletic as Bisontis, but they do have more size with them. And when you look at the notes and think about what I'm saying about Bisontis, maybe that 10 to 15 pounds less, right, is where there's a little less mass when it comes to that recovery, right? When you reset and get there, right? And that could be the difference between the long time starting guard that I'm picturing Bisontis being versus an all pro Hall of Fame type player that we're talking about with the Quentin Nelsons and Zach Martins. If you gave me a choice, then yeah, I'm going to take the guy that is heavier and still just as athletic. We've seen with Jonas Savai and I that's also not enough on its own. But yeah, if you give me the option, I want my guards to be bigger. One of the big things that comes with that is the ability to anchor in the pocket, right? The more mass you have, the harder you are to move. So I think that that makes a big difference in the passing game. Moving on to the next player that we have for the check the tape is Emmanuel Pregnon, another guard, and I have Pregnon, Rutledge, Bisontis. They're all ranked very closely for me. I have Pregnon right in the middle of those two. And I really like Pregnon in the run game. Like he's a mauler. He is strong. He's like a bull in a ring. Once he is attached to you, that rep is over for you. And the problem that I have is that as much as I love him in the run game, there is a lot of warts in his pass protection. Like I think he's got a very good anchor, right? But as soon as he starts having to move side to side, or we're asking him to get into space, like his feet almost go dead. And I think that you can work around that. Like if you have four good pass blocking offensive linemen, this is the guy that you're covering up. You can work with that to capitalize on what he brings in the run game. But I don't think that this is the type of guy that could come in and be your number one guard, right? And that you're able to constantly slide protection away from him and leave him essentially on as much of an island as a guard can be. So I do, again, another guy that I like. I don't see round one material here. If you were just basing on the run game, then I could see that argument there. But for me, for a guard to have, round one talk, then you can't be a borderline liability in the pass game there. Any thoughts you have on Pregnon?
Well, I mean, to be honest, that's a little depressing in a way, right? Because obviously Miami's in the market to kind of, I mean, we know Austin Jackson will be back, right? We just kind of reworked the contract. So, okay, fine. But, I tweeted something out earlier this morning about how the Packers like to select tackles, preferably, and convert them into guards or even like centers in the case of like Elgton Jenkins and things of that nature. But then when you look at Miami's offensive line, right, and we have Patrick Paul, who I think we can say that we have confidence in both parts of his game being very good at something, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean he's got some room to improve in the run game, but
Course.
it's very passable, I would say.
Right. Okay. Then you look at left guard. We know what Jonah is, right? Where the pass protection is terrifying for one, and the run game. Where would you put it?
Flashes.
1 to 10, right? Flashes, right? Okay. Obviously, we have to really hope for improvement there, and I think they need a plan B in case that he starts to really sink this year. Brewer, right? We know that that's just a run game monster, and I guess maybe his weight and his stature kind of maybe can play a part in dealing with certain kinds of defensive tackles, but for the most part, Brew is Brew. He's a stud, right?
Absolutely.
So then, right tackle, we have Austin Jackson again, which we know run game guy. Pass protection can struggle with certain guys, right? Certain types.
Yep.
So what do you think, what fits in there? You know what I mean? Like, and it's easy to just say, okay, well, if we grab, Maui Noah or Fano and stick him at right guard, I think they'll be just fine despite, whatever their little weaknesses, deficiencies are, right? That's what we think. But if you're going down, and you're talking about Bisontis, you're talking about Pregnon, you're talking about Keelan Rutledge, Jalen Farmer is a big name that gets mentioned. So when we talk about, and you look at it from that perspective, who fits in there properly where, you're not dealing with the same issues you have on the left, because you can't have two guards, right, that are struggling in pass pro, because then they can play games and make you slide protect and you're going to get the one-on-one with one of them, right? So it's almost like you kind of have to say, let's get a guy that's solid in pass pro and maybe struggles a little bit in the run game, and we think there's room to, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense? And do you have a guy in mind that would fit that bill?
No, you're right. And what you get when you have two guards like that is the 2025 Miami Dolphins, when you have Jonas Ionai and Cole Strange as your guards, and definitely
In
don't
much
want to.
shorter words, yes, we
Yeah,
lived it.
don't want to go down that road again. There are not a lot of guards that I am real high on, at least that I've seen so far, as being guys that I'm comfortable as plug and play number one guard type players. Obviously, Venga. I hate pronouncing names. The Penn State guard, number
I
71.
think it's Iowana. I don't know, Iowana.
Yeah, right. So obviously he's one. Not sure I like him at 11. He's not going to be around at 43. Keelan Rutledge would be another one that I think is pretty much a plug and play guy for me. If we're talking about guys that are a little better in pass protection than what they are in run blocking right now. Right now, you're getting into the Jeremiah Rice, the Micah Morris's, but I'm not sure if those guys are rated. Like, those are not guys that I'm comfortable drafting and plugging into the starting lineup. You mentioned Fano and Malinois. There's a few other tackles or college tackles that are likely to get converted inside that, if I had them shifted over on my guard board would, maybe a little higher, and maybe it would be those guys that get started on day one, right? So when we look at stuff like that, right now we're talking about Brian Parker Jr. out of Duke. We're talking about Jennings Dunker out of Iowa. Um, it would be those type of guys, right? Maybe an Austin Barber could do it.
Is a
Max,
Blake Miller strictly a tackle, or does he have the
I
ability to kick inside as well? I mean, it's six. I just saw he's 6'7", so I know you're pushing
yeah,
it there.
and I feel like when you get to that type of size, that your length can almost be a
Difficult.
disadvantage inside.
Yeah.
I in that type of conversation again comes down to what's the long term plan for Austin Jackson, and part of me feels like the way that contract was restructured. Yes, the price came down, but they're still looking at $13 million in dead cap next year if it voids. Um, so it made me at least wonder, are they hoping that Austin Jackson stays healthy, produces in this offense, and that they can give him an extension after this season, or re-sign him after this season to kind of stretch out that dead money? Otherwise, you're taking a $13 million hit next year. But if you've already basically decided that 2026 is it for Austin Jackson and you're looking to move on, then I could see you drafting somebody like a Blake Miller and square peg round hole, putting him at guard, kind of like Tunzel was, because I mean Tunzel was
Yeah,
not really
yeah.
a true guard either. I could see you doing that for a year with a Blake Miller, but I would not, if I thought that Austin Jackson had the potential of being the right tackle for the next 4 to 5 years, which is realistic. He's only 27 right now, I think. Right. So if you do like him and you're hoping that he stays healthy, then I would not draft a Blake Miller to go to guard and look at that as being your pairing. I would look, more to a Parker, a Dunker, somebody like that.
Sorry to bombard you, but I think it's I wanted to let you cook a little bit because that's a big thing they need to figure out now that Malik is in house and give
Yeah.
this offense and him a real chance here.
Yeah, do not ever apologize for letting me talk about offensive line.
I try to set you up, brother. Jason Kidd, I'm just lobbing it up.
Right. So last player we had on the check the tape part of it from last week is wide receiver out of USC, Jacoby Lane. And I had not watched Lane at all before last week, but flipped on the tape and I'm impressed. Like, this is he's not your number one type wide receiver, right? He's not going to come in here and be your Jamar Chase or somebody like that. But I think he brings a lot of value, right? He's tall, he's kind of lanky, tracks the ball really well in the air. I think he's, a willing participant in the run game, right? He's not going to go out there and, be Hines Ward or anything like that, but he's not, just looking to avoid it either. I think he's more of a long strider as opposed to that quick twitch, run after catch type guy. But I think that he's the type of guy that you can just throw the ball up and let him go get it, right? He's not going to constantly separate. Like I said, the short area quickness, I don't know is there for him, but he has that ability that, when you start to get in trouble, right? If he's anywhere in the area, you can throw it up and he's going to compete for the ball. I think he shows a good job of understanding body control, body position, and how to battle, especially the smaller corners. I think that does pretty well catching the ball through contact. And when we talk about, the type of player that you want to pair with a Jalen Waddle, right? It would be great to go out there and say that there's a Megatron out there that we can go and get, and we can just have essentially 2 number ones out there. That's not realistic. But so when you start talking about a number 2 or number 3 receiver that you can get on day 2 that's got that size, I think Jacoby Lane fits that really well. Your thoughts on Lane? I know you talked about him a little bit last week.
Yeah, no, and I kind of stick to that. Like, I totally get what you're saying, because it's, the athleticism for his size and, all that stuff that you're talking about to go up and get it, the 50-50 stuff. Even, honestly, like when he's given free releases and room to work and like off zones and stuff, like he can do all that fairly well too, because like he's not like the baby draft, right? Like on, like rollerblades. Like he's got feet, he tempos his stuff well, his routes well, where, he can full speed break down, and run, the post and then snap it off and get back outside. Like, again, if he's not touched, like he can do all of that as if he's a smaller receiver, which is nice. My biggest worry is, again, and it's something that happens with a lot of big receivers, is just what happens when somebody comes up and gets in his face. Like I said, I don't love the release package. I just, again, I watched him do things where it just looked like, if he didn't get off the line properly for one, but then he also didn't necessarily look like he had a plan to get open, where, I've been there where, I've like just personally stepped up into like a different level of competition and had faced a corner that, right, I didn't like, just the kind of guy I hadn't really faced before, where I'm looking like, all right, there's not very many 6'3" guys that have ever covered me with really long arms. This is interesting and weird, where I'm like, am I going to get am I going to get blasted here? So like, I get it, where you're kind of almost worried about the press, and you're not even thinking to like your third step yet, because you're so worried about getting off the line of scrimmage. And again, maybe it's something that can come with time, and but usually, like for me, I love the guys coming out of college that can just get off the line and win and have the release package. It was a big reason why I was a big fan of Kyle Williams last year, because his release package is sick, and to why Devontae has had the career he has had is his release package is incredible. So again, I could see it. And I'll say this too, because I thought you made a good point with the guy, like if you, run into trouble, you can throw it up. With Malik Willis being there and extending plays, and it probably more backyard football will get played by the Dolphins. I do think that there will be situations like that where it's like, yeah, that's where he could shine. But again, I think if you're looking for a guy that, is going to be a consistent go-to 1 or 2, and he's got to deal with press, I wouldn't take him. I have a couple other guys that I would prefer, that I think are better fits, or just as good fits, that don't deal with that issue.
Do you want to get into those there? Or you want to save that?
No, we can move along. That's fine. Like I said, oh, you know what? I'll mention 2 guys. Just because it was recent and relevant, was Jeff Caldwell blew up the combine, and 6'5", huge. And I think, early on, like I was pleasantly surprised when I had watched Malachi Fields, because just like I was talking about in this conversation already, that I kind of have a thing, it's not against tall receivers, but like you really need to impress me and show me that you have the feet and the release package and all that stuff. Because again, it's not just I'm bigger than you, I can push you out of the way. It really doesn't work like that. These guys, these corners are so technically sound and good, man, and they're confident, that it just doesn't work that way. You got to be able to win, in multiple ways. It's with your feet, your release package, your hands, the dipping your shoulder and not giving them your body, certain things. But I had kind of gone back and looked at some other, some NFL pro comps about, what these guys did at the combine, their numbers, how they matched up, their game, as far as the film goes. And I think if Miami was looking for Christian Watson, type like that, the guy that can really fly and get down the field, I thought maybe it could have been Malachi Fields at first. But then with the 40, it's again, I'm somebody that tries not to put too much weight into that, but it is interesting because that is, it was kind of slow in a way, So, and when you compare him to Watson, Watson ran like in the 4.3s, man. Like, he was moving. So for me, I think Malachi Fields is probably better served to be the Brandon Marshall type of big receiver, where he's working underneath and uses his body to wall things off, and he's going to have to be high IQ and find the holes in coverage. And again, that might be more so his game than it is what we thought, which is take the top off the defense. Where Jeff Caldwell to me seems like the kind of guy that can fly and be the Christian Watson and get down the field and catch the deep ball. So just thought it was interesting because, again, I think, those guys are relevant. We know they're looking for big physical receivers. Malachi Fields has been a strong candidate for a lot of Dolphins fans, including myself, surprisingly, and kind of almost reluctantly. But yeah, I just think those guys are relevant. And I think digging into, them a little bit more, change my view and opinion, of who they are and what I think, kind of players they will be.
Yeah, and those are. I want to keep looking at these bigger wide receivers, so I was just making a note that those are definitely two that I'm going to look at. We do have. I don't want to go overboard and call it breaking news, but there was a report that, like I said, we started the new league year at 4:00 today. It's about 4:30 now as we're recording here live. Bradley Chubb has officially been released, designated with that post June 1st cut, and he has already signed a contract with the Bills for 3 years, 43.5 million and 29 million guaranteed. So we will see
Okay, my guy.
Bradley Chubb 2 times a year. Moving
Good.
on
Patrick
to
Paul can bury him.
yeah, I look forward to that one. Just
Yes, sir.
hopefully they keep him on that side and don't move him over to Austin Jackson's side.
Yes.
But so moving on to Dolphins news as far as free agency. Going to kind of go through these quick, right? We had the release of Tua, who has already signed with the Falcons. We had the release of Ingold, who has already signed with the Chargers. Anthony's got his Tua jersey on. Release of Jason Sanders. Minka Fitzpatrick, we know, was traded to the Jets for a 7th-round pick, but also came with a contract extension restructure that freed up some extra money there. Julian Hill was not tendered as a restricted free agent, so he is free to go anywhere. Another one that just came through was that the Dolphins re-signed AJ Green. I couldn't even tell you who AJ Green is. Zane Gonzalez was brought in as the kicker. Greg Dulcich was re-signed for 1 year's $3.25 million. Austin Jackson took a pay cut, restructured, freed up some extra space there. Willie Gay re-signed as well. Josh Uche re-signed as well, or not re-signed, signed from the Eagles. Lonnie Johnson, safety, signed from the Raiders. And then, of course, the Malik Willis one. But where I want to start with you, Anthony, is, and we have a question in the chat that's going to kind of fit into this as well. And so In-Date asked, do you all think Epinesa fits the Packers / John Eric Sullivan's prototype of an edge? Would he be a target for y'all? And I can tell you that for me, I think that a younger Epinesa probably fits what I would have liked. I haven't watched Epinesa in a while. I felt that he got drafted a little higher than what he should have.
Yeah.
But if he's still the same type of player that he was when he came out, then that would be intriguing for me as the type of player that could play as a 4-3 defensive end and stand up as your strong side outside backer occasionally. But a lot of these defensive conversations, especially in the edge room, are going to revolve around what can they do, right? What flexibility do they bring? Jeff Hafley has talked about wanting to be able to switch between a 3-4 and a 4-3 without changing the personnel. So when we look at a a Willie Gay, right? Is this a player that we know that he was part of the 4-3 package last year, but is this a guy that can move up and play as a 3-4 outside linebacker as well and stay on the field in that sense? And then Josh Uche, like, is he the type of guy that can be your 3-4 outside linebacker and then play some, more of a wide 9 type when you go to a 4-3? Or is, are they kind of leaning into the Chop Robinson thing where it's a very niche role, right? Where you don't have a huge role in a 3-4 defense for him. Is Josh Uche just kind of a, redundancy for that, right? Are they going to kind of embrace what Chop Robinson is and create a role in this defense for him? And Josh Uche is kind of, hey, if something happens to Chop, we don't need to scrap the entire defense. We've got a player that can do similar things. So, going to give you a chance to talk about each of those: Epinesa, Gay, Uche, and just kind of what you think they bring to the defense. And I guess mostly what I'm looking for is, can each of those players fill multiple roles when we're looking at a defense that wants to be very fluid?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the Epinesa thing. It's a name that I keep seeing over and over when I look at, who's available. And I kind of ask myself the same thing. Like, does he fit? Does he not? The good thing is, you know what? A lot of these guys are just flat out of Miami's price range. So I'm not sure that they're even, really looking that direction. But I can't say that I've watched extensive tape on Epinesa, but he's big. And again, like right now, I think where they need to be looking is they need to be looking for a guy that balances kind of the edges, right? Like, at least from the way I look at things is, and kind of what they had, right, was where Chop's a pass rusher. That's what he is. You're hoping that he can develop the run, defense aspect of his game and be a full-time player, somebody that you just really don't take off the field. But when you have that, and he leans so heavy in the pass rush, area on one side of the field, on the other side, then you need to balance it out and you need to have somebody that can set the edge on that side. Because if you can't set the edge on either side and they, teams can kind of run either way, you're going to be in trouble. So that's kind of, and that kind of leads into the Uche talk, right? Is like, he's 225. It's not really a guy that I think is going to like be setting the edge. I'll read that in a second. Is setting the edge. I definitely think he's another one that is more specific, a pass rusher. So I wonder, I put a tweet out where it's like, I think if you're going to play Chop and let him develop, right, and you're going to give him the opportunity to do that, I think he's got to play the majority of snaps. And I think if, he gets tired, I think, Uch maybe is a guy that can step in behind him. But even like Chop has some weight to him. Chop's in the 240s as well. It's not like he's light. And I think Uche, maybe I talked about, like a 4-down lineman when you're talking about third down and passing situations where, he can be one of your two edges, and if you wanted to even get a third one out there, Chop or maybe somebody that's not on the roster yet, like a draft pick can slide inside. That's something that Halfley did do, in Green Bay with Micah, where you got, matched up on guards. So, and that was also something that we wanted to see from Chop because he did it at Penn State. So, I think there's that aspect of it, but I hope that was everything, right? Like, again, I think right now Miami's focus does need to be on somebody that can set the edge, because if you can't stop the run, we saw what that looks like early last year. And it's not good. You don't get to anything fun. You don't get to any of your rush package. You don't get to any of that stuff if you don't get the third down and 7+, right? So right now, the only guys that I kind of have faith in to stop the run are defensive tackles. So, Miami needs to be in the market for, your 270, 280 pound kind of edge, 265, same kind of deal maybe that, Bradley Chubb was, right? Chubb was in the 260s, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and he was a good edge setter for the most part when he wanted to do it.
Absolutely. So going through the chat here, Cam Taylor Britt. Is that one that you've watched? I haven't, so I'm putting it on my list to check for next week.
No, not somebody that I've really paid attention to, and I think he's in Cincinnati. I think that defense has struggled for a couple years, and now I know he's made some plays, and I don't think he's like a bad player or anything like that. But just I like what we have as far as our secondary. I think we need safeties, and I think we need to do some stuff in the draft. But I personally really want to see what Jason Marshall has. I want to see what Brents has. And I would like to sign somebody maybe with some flexibility. Like I think Cater makes a lot of sense. If Cater gets paid somewhere, I'm happy for him. But I think Cater makes sense because he's got inside outside flexibility. But and that's also where we talk about guys like maybe a D'Angelo Pons, or if we talk about Malik Muhammad, and Muhammad's even got the size, which is nice. So that's kind of where I'm looking. I don't necessarily really. I'm not looking at the secondary group, and definitely not really, corners as far as free agents.
Yeah. And they did bring in Lonnie Johnson, who I think he's like 30 years old now, but hasn't played a whole lot. And I don't have my draft notes from back then. I wish I did. I remember looking at him. I remember liking him. He was a corner in college, a longer corner, right? Another 6'2" guy, some more length in the secondary. I only did a little bit of film watching of Lonnie Johnson with his time with the Raiders. He was back there as the deep center fielder, single high type safety a lot. So I'm not sure if that's the type of role they envisioned him, but I did like the fact that there were times that he was able to come down and play some man-to-man coverage as well. So I think this is another player that affords you some flexibility, right? I don't think he's going to be a very physical player. He's not going to be the roll up in the box, play the slot type, not a Minka Fitzpatrick type player. But if we're looking maybe more so what the vision for Ife Melifonwu was supposed to be, I could see that, right? Another college corner that was converted to safety. I think that for me right now, like I said, I've only got a couple of games of film that I've watched of Lonnie Johnson, but that's kind of the direction that I see him going. And we will have video reviews. I think Anthony's going to do both of them for both Josh Uche and Lonnie Johnson that we're going to have up on the channel here.
I think I'm going to take a peek at Willie Gay as well too, and just see what his snaps looked like. Sorry, not to cut you off either, but I did just see per NFL Network, and this is from Barry Jackson, Dolphins adding cornerback Daryl Baker, who started 10 games for the Titans last season, but regrettably permitted a 135.4 passer rating and 5 touchdowns. Him, I don't know at all and don't remember anything about him. Draft process, no nothing.
I have never even heard of Daryl Baker, so that makes 2 of us. And I guess that's one more that we're both gonna have to look into.
Yep.
So we're a little over halfway through today. Got a few viewers in the queue there. Get your questions in there. As always, doesn't matter if they're football or not. Like we love talking football, but it's fun to get off topic every once in a while. But moving through the agenda, obviously the big signing for this entire offseason for the Dolphins was Malik Willis, 3 years, $67.5 million, 45 guaranteed. When it's less than $9 million in cap hit this year. And I think that you and I have both kind of shared our opinions on Malik Willis overall. I think we're both fans of his. I think it's going to be a very different style of football than what we're used to seeing. You talked about it earlier with Jacoby Lane getting a little bit of that backyard football here and there. One of the big things that I was thinking about last night and this morning is that one of the things that I'm looking forward to with Malik Willis is the way that his style of play will stress the entire field every single play, right? And not him alone, but the combination of him and Devon Achane, right? If you look at, when we run outside zone, for example, right, that play for Achane can hit anywhere from a cutback to all the way to the sideline. Like he is stressing 2/3 of the field by himself. And now you're adding in Malik Willis, who you get some boot action off of that, and there are very few edges that are going to be able to hang with him, right? And the moment that you do is where you're leaving that lane for Achane to cut back, get vertical through the middle, and then you're hoping that a safety tackles in one-on-one. So right there, you are stretching. How wide's a football field? Like 53.5 yards or something like that.
Think
You are
so, yeah.
stressing every inch of that just with an outside zone and a play action. And then you add in Malik Willis's arm, and now, right, there was a cap on where you had to defend with Tua as the quarterback once he got out of the pocket, right? We all know that for all the things that Tua did well, being able to get it down the field in a scramble drill was not necessarily one of those. With Malik Willis now, right, when he gets out of the pocket, your safeties cannot roll up, right? Now you have a Jalen Waddle, right? Hopefully you get somebody along the same lines as a Jacoby Lane. Guys like that, right? So now you are stressing the field horizontally, you are stressing it vertically, and you obviously have to learn how to harness that. Willis obviously did very well in the limited opportunities that he had, and we're going to have to see, how that looks, assuming that he is the starting quarterback in 2026. We're going to have to see how that looks with a larger sample size. But for me, other than the stuff that we've talked about outside of here, just that idea of getting back to being able to stress the entire football field and capitalize on the spacing of the defense is something that I'm looking forward to for, if Malik Willis is the starting quarterback. And anything else that you want to add on Willis?
I'm excited, man. I think again, it's very different. It's like polar opposites as compared to what we've had. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that we've ever had a guy like this. Somebody so dynamic that can run and pick up first downs. But that's not Pat White, right? Like we're talking about
That was the
somebody like.
first name that came to mind when you were saying about
Yeah,
that.
but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody real, that's a real quarterback that, can beat you from the pocket, we think, and probably there needs to be some development or whatnot. It's okay. He's, this is the first time ever he's actually going to get the starter reps all the way through an off season and, every week. Like, so far it's like, yes, the development's been fantastic, but it's also like on a limited basis, right? Like he wasn't stealing snaps from Jordan Love. So now it's like he's the guy. This is like he gets all the focus, all the attention, all the snaps, all the coaching, so everything is tailored for him. I'm really excited to see what this looks like, because again, it's different. I'm looking forward to the read option stuff, everything you mentioned. I'm looking forward to picking up some easy first downs with his legs when just defenses want to drop and try to go ahead, sit, drop 8 in the coverage, and it's like, okay, well, if our protection, which I assume will also get better under these guys as well, because their focus is to, the trenches, build from all that out, right? Okay, give him time and let him kind of just find and take his time because he's ultra confident in his legs, and if anybody gets near him, he can get out of trouble, So there's going to be a lot of different things that we haven't seen recently and maybe ever in a Dolphins uniform, as and I'm not saying it's like he's going to be the best thing ever, but I'm just saying it is so different, and I think we'll come to appreciate what he does bring to the table. Yeah, man, it's gonna be cool, man. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I mean, and you obviously there's a level of consistency that we have to find out if Willis has, but you're talking about that there, right? And in the past, right, if you had a 3rd and 7, right, you knew the ball had to be thrown. Like we weren't scrambling for 3rd and 7. But now you get Malik Willis out of the pocket and you have an outside linebacker who's kind of caught in no man's land. Is he going to stay with Greg Dulcich, who's running towards the sideline, or is he going to come up with Malik Willis? And if he decides to stay with Dulcich, right, it's almost 100% first down, right? He's going to get the 7-8 yards, hopefully just scamper out of bounds and stay healthy, right? But that's an element that we haven't had. Again, right? Again, stressing the defense every single snap. And I absolutely love that, right? And I like the fact that, there was talks of the contract going up to, 40 million. And I said, if it got to that point and Jeff Halfley and John Eric Sullivan decided they wanted to go to that, I wouldn't be thrilled, but I'd understand it. I would support it, right? Because they have that knowledge. So the fact that this comes in where it is, right? If he turns into even a top 15 quarterback, this is a bargain type contract. And there's nothing about this contract that prevents you from doing anything else that you want to do, right? If you are, not 100% sold on Willis and you want to continue to infuse some competition into this room, this contract does not prohibit you from doing that. So
No, totally agree. And just how about quarterback sneaks? They're back on the table.
right,
How about
right,
3rd and 2, 5 wide, and a quarterback
right,
draw? I mean, these
right.
are things that we have not had at our disposal. I mean, and again, I love Tua. I did. But I get it. Like, he was limited. I just too many things did have to be set and whatever. It's a whole different conversation. It's fine. I can admit where he was great and I can admit where his weaknesses were. But with Malik, there is no doubt about it. Having that extra dimension is, I mean, it's game changing. It does a
And that
lot for an offense.
right, that in that statement there does a lot for an offense. You've said a couple of times here about the offensive line improving, and this is something that I've kind of argued as well, that some of these offensive lines that appear to be significantly better than what the Dolphins have had aren't that much better than the Dolphins offensive line, but they have quarterbacks that make you pay, right? When you look at the way, and I mean, I don't want to take a whole lot away from the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. They have had a great offensive line. But when you look at the way that teams had to rush Jalen Hurts, right, you have to maintain your pass rush lanes.
Thank
Because
you.
if
That's
you,
where I was going next with this. So I'm
right,
really
right,
glad you're talking about this. Yeah.
you start twisting and leaving gaps open, and then like you said, right, you spread it out, and now there's nobody left in the middle of the field. It's a middle linebacker versus Jalen Hurts, Malik Willis, whatever running quarterback you want to put in there, right? That's a victory for the offense every time.
Yes.
So just that the threat of him leaving the pocket, I think, is going to have a cumulative effect on what you see in the passing game, right? Same idea, right? You almost have to, and we've talked about the difference between one gapping and two gapping before, right? But you almost have to two gap as a pass rusher now, right? Whereas before you could get upfield, you could pick a side and you could take it, right? But if everybody doesn't pick that side right, then now you are leaving a lane that's going to cost you a 3rd and medium, 3rd and long. So I do think that, in addition to stressing the field every inch of it, right, that you're going to see an improvement in the pass blocking numbers that doesn't even involve improvement in the talent. Now, hopefully the talent improves as well, but just that threat is going to change the way that teams pass rush against the Dolphins.
Big time, man. Yeah.
All right. So as we continue here, new exercise, we've talked about doing this or that, and going to try that today. Right. So one of the groups that I kind of work with, Draft Professors, a lot of great guys over there, a lot of great draft people, is run by Jim Wickens. He has his own mock draft simulator. Again, I think it's draftprofessor.com. If you just search for it, you'll find it. But one of the kind of neat things that he has in there is you can either do a 2 or a 3 round fanatic challenge. And what that means is that, so we did a 2 round challenge, or I did a 2 round challenge. And what it's going to do is to run you through the first 2 rounds of the draft 10 times in a row. It's pretty quick. It probably took me 5-10 minutes to do. But the thing is that it's going to make you pick a different set of players each time you do it. So what we're going to do here, right, for the this and that segment this week, is that we are going to go through all 10 of those combinations. And Anthony, I want you to tell me which one of those combinations in the end, or we're going to see in the end, which one you would go with. And if you're in the chat, feel free to, put your opinions in there as well. So the first time I went through, first round pick, Caleb Downs, second round pick, Blake Miller. Okay. The second time, Spencer Fano, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Which combination do you like better?
I like Fano and McNeil Warren.
Next combination, Dylan Thieneman, Caleb Tiernan.
You're good. I thought you were giving me another one. Okay.
No, would you give up Spencer Fano, Emmanuel McNeil Warren for Dylan
No,
Thieneman?
I'll stay Fano and McNeil Warren.
How about Monroe Freeling and AJ Halsey?
If I'm talking just prospects, I would take that one. I guess, am I trying to fit this into Miami because Austin Jackson will say is our starting right tackle? Do you know what I mean
I would
by
say
that?
we're going to try to what we think is going to be best for the Dolphins.
All right, so let's go. We'll. No, you know what? I'll take the best player. I'll figure it out. I'll give me Monroe Freeling and AJ Halsey.
Francis Maui-Noah and Bud Clark.
Ooh. Not to take too much time, but yeah, that's tough, man. Yeah, give me yeah, give me that one.
All right. Mansour Delane and Malachi Lawrence.
Oh boy, dude, what are you doing to me, man? Oof. I mean, we need edge, bad tackle. Yeah, give me that one.
All right, next one, Keldrick Falk and Emmanuel Pregnon.
No.
Monroe Freeling and CJ Allen.
No.
Spencer Fano, Chase Bisontis.
Oh, interesting. Get the whole right side short up. No, though.
And then the last one that I have here for you is Francis Maui-Noah and Chris Johnson.
And what do I currently have? I'm currently sitting with Mansour Delane and
Malachi Lawrence.
Malachi Lawrence. Oh boy. I'd flip a quarter there. It's so difficult, man. This is why I'm trying everything in my mind to create another pick somewhere in that 20 to 30 range, because it's so difficult to decide, where am I going to go? Because you're gonna. It hurts to watch some of these guys go to other teams, man. It's tough.
Yeah, it definitely it's a fun exercise, right? And the end result there is that you did not make a choice, and that you you kind of straddled the fence between Mansour Delane and Malachi Lawrence.
Who did that years ago? Remember, the clock expired on them, and then the next team picked. I think it was
something with the Vikings.
I thought the Vikings as well, and maybe Dallas or something. I can't remember what it was, but that's crazy.
Yeah,
there was like an NFL Films or something on that was like gave you like all the behind the scenes of what was going on, and it was like, man, I can't even imagine in today's world, what social media would do to that regime.
Right. All right. So we ended up with Delane sort of shoring up cornerback one, Malachi Lawrence bringing in one of your favorite edges, or we bring in Maui-Noah to play some guard, possibly kick out, and Chris Johnson. So fun exercise.
I'll take Maui-Noah and Johnson just to solidify it.
Making a final. All right. So Maui-Noah and Chris Johnson. That'll make IA Figueroa happy in the chat, who was saying about Chris Johnson earlier. So that's all that I have for last week. Don't have any more questions in the chat. We got a couple more minutes here. I popped this one up earlier Anything you want to add to that one, or are you ready just to let that one go?
I'll say Bam was still playing defense, and it's not. Dude was getting triple teams. Just got some of that, just like not known for being a scorer. It has nothing to do with what transpired for 48 minutes on the court. It's about what they did that night. Again, hats off to Bam, but it's not the same. Like, it's not even the same statistically. Anyway, I had one for you though, real quick. I know,
Okay,
we're
let's go.
probably getting close to time, but I know you liked Fano more than Maui Noah, and then I know you really like Freeling, and I believe you had said that Freeling is your number one. So, but again, like now there's these two corkscrews thrown into the thinking there in a way, and I understand taking best player available, but when you look at it, right, with Austin Jackson presumably locking himself in the right tackle, and then Fano's arms, the arm length, right, has got to be a little bit of a factor there. Does it change anything for you? And you can either talk about, how you have him ranked, or probably more so better to talk about the specific fit for the Dolphins. But, I had a mock where I somehow, and again, I don't see this happening, I had all three of those guys to choose from at 11. And I was like, whoa, what do you do? And I was just like, I looked to my left, looked to my right, and I was like, where's the big man? Like this is your territory to help me out. And so what do you I'm dying to know what you kind of think in a situation like that.
So you're asking me in a situation where all three of them are on the board?
All three of them are available, yeah.
So, man, that is tough. So,
Yeah.
for again, I think that a lot of that would have to do with where their stance was on Austin Jackson, right? If you felt like Austin Jackson, that you're just trying to get through one more year before you let go of him, then I probably do go Freeling, right? I think that, like I said, he's the top tackle on my board. Like you said earlier during your this and that, right? Draft the best player, figure it out, right? And we'll get him into where we want him long term in 2027, and that would be assuming that Austin Jackson stays healthy, right? There's a chance that you draft Freeling, Jackson misses time, and you're putting Freeling out there anyways. As far as Fano, the arms don't do a whole lot for me. I know that the comparison has been made to Will Campbell's arm length, but I wasn't a fan of Will Campbell as a tackle regardless of his arms. Like he could have had 35-inch arms, and I still didn't like the way that he moved. And I don't feel the same way about Fano in that regard. So I would still, if I was planning on sticking with Austin Jackson, then I would still. All right, so I'll make this easier, right? If I was planning to move on from Austin Jackson, I would take Monroe Freeling and I would figure it out. If my ultimate goal was to see if Austin Jackson could be the right tackle and that I was hoping that he could be there, then I'd pass on all three of them because I do not want to draft a guard only at number 11. I think that is too rich. I think even when you look over the history of the NFL draft, there have been some amazing guards drafted, top 15, right? You're talking Quentin Nelson, you're talking Zach Martin, guys like that. But what has that really done for their team? How big of a difference has that made for their team overall versus, right, if you could go out and you could get a number one corner, you can get a top edge rusher, you can get some of these other positions that I feel like can have a larger impact overall. So in short, if I'm looking long-term right tackle, I'm going Monroe Freeling. If we're talking somebody that we're planning on putting a guard, I'm probably going to, let it ride and try to circle back in round 2 or 3 and pick up my guard there.
Just real. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to jump in real quick and say, it's so different now with these guys in charge, just because with Chris Greer, it was like we wanted it done early because it was such a good prospect. It felt like you couldn't miss. We didn't have faith in that they would hit on the later rounds, where maybe with these guys, and again, looking at some history, like they have found some guys later on, and, with a little bit more success than Greer did, where it's like, I'm sure that in a way, that can factor in as well, where it's like you said, you got one or the other. Well, we have faith that we can find a guy in the third or the fourth because we've done it, So I think Dolphins fans, again, like there's a lot of, things from the past that we have set in stone about how the draft goes and all that, that we almost need to try to like clean slate and wash away, because this is a totally different thing and it's going to go different. These people think different, they draft different, they evaluate different. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
Absolutely. We do got one quick one from IA Figueroa. Quick question: does the Dolphins restructuring AJ hurt their chances from drafting a traditional right tackle or a versatile one? Kind of covered that in my answer there. They do still have to do more at the tackle position. What they have is not enough, but I think that when you know, kind of firm up the right tackle for 2026 with Austin Jackson, then maybe that opens the door for a Iheanacho, right? Or Austin Barber or Caleb Tiernan if those guys start falling, right? You do got to find at least a swing tackle there. And Isaiah World is another one that I'll throw out there that seems to be low on a lot of boards, but I think has some upside that you can bring him in as a swing tackle and try to develop him. So or even a Drew Shelton, right? I've made the comparison before of Drew Shelton being the Kendall Lamb type, and that could be your versatile backup that can play both sides, but you don't necessarily want to start long term, but can kind of keep the seat warm if you don't see Austin Jackson as being a long term one. So appreciate that question from IA Figueroa. Anything else you got for us, Anthony, before we shut it down for today?
No, man, I think that was it for me. Just yeah, like I said, I'm going to get into the breakdowns of Ooch, Willie Gay, and what was the other one? Oh, Lonnie Johnson, right? So
Lonnie
we'll take a look at
Johnson.
those guys and anybody else on the defensive side that's relevant and worth taking a look at. Yeah, I'm excited, man. Like I said, it's fun times. Love this time of the year.
Absolutely. And I fully expect that we will have some more players add to the Dolphins before next week's live. And we will, look at the film for the players we've discussed, come back with the check the tape like we always do. Appreciate the folks that have chimed in the chat and have contributed and asked questions. If you guys have questions for Anthony or I through the week, we are both very active on Twitter. So, feel free to stop in, ask questions, and we'll respond to everything we can. But for now, appreciate you guys watching. Say goodbye to Anthony's Tua jersey one final time, and we will talk again next week.